According to New York legend, Big Mose was an 8-foot-tall giant with fists the size of Virginia hams. He spent his days patrolling the Bowery, lifting horse-drawn trolley cars off their tracks whenever they got in his way. The stories claimed he could swim the entire length of the Hudson River in 2 strokes, and that he smoked a 2-foot-long cigar, exhaling with enough force to blow sailboats off course. This dual timeline graphic tracks the origins of American folklore. Up top is Paul Bunyan, who represents a concept called folklore, a myth entirely invented by a corporate ad agency in the 1920s to sell lumber. Down below, we have Big Mose in the 1840s, representing a completely organic, street-level origin. Big Mose defies the trend of corporate folklore because he is based on a real, flesh-and-blood historical figure. To understand how a working-class guy became a superhero of the streets, we have to look at the chaotic, violent world he actually lived in. Lower Manhattan in the 1840s was rapidly industrializing, densely packed, and largely ungoverned. The population was exploding into cramped, unregulated neighborhoods. Walking these streets was Moses Humphrey, an Irish-American printer working for the New York Sun and a regular parishioner over at St. Andrew's Church. To find Moses Humphrey, we have to look past the fire department as we know it, into a city where the government barely existed. Moses Humphrey served as a volunteer firefighter, running with Engine Company No. 40. Today, we assume firefighters are strictly public servants. In the 1840s, volunteer fire companies operated as fierce, territorial neighborhood gangs. These companies were populated by a cultural archetype known as the Bowery Behoy. Behoys were tough, working-class young men, famous for their heavy boots, specific street slang, and an incredibly aggressive swagger. When a fire broke out, putting out the flames was often secondary. Companies raced to the scene primarily to physically fight rival gangs, like the notorious Plug Uglies, for control of the fire hydrants, swinging wooden clubs and stomping with copper-spiked boots. Despite the extreme violence, these same brawlers regularly charged directly into burning tenements, risking their own lives to pull trapped citizens to safety. Long before he was a theatrical icon, Humphrey was a local celebrity, a man who personified both the terrifying violence and the desperate bravery of the Bowery. In February 1848, a play called A Glance at New York took Humphrey's local reputation and broadcast it to the entire city. The play's star, Frank Chanfraw, exactly copied the real Mose for the stage. He wore the same red shirt, styled his hair in the same flat soaplocks, and adopted the aggressive swagger and slang of the Bowery. Night after night, the theaters were packed with the very same laborers and fireboys the play was depicting. It marked the first time they saw their own gritty lives represented as Ferret. The fictional character's fame quickly spiraled out of control. Through endless stage sequels and dime novels, the mythic Mose traveled far beyond the Bowery, ending up in absurd locations like China, and even taking a trip to the moon. While the theatrical character achieved impossible levels of fame, the real Moses Humphrey quietly and permanently disappeared from the historical record. Following the Civil War, the political and technological landscape shifted. The violent volunteer gangs were disbanded, replaced by a professionalized paid fire department. The steam-powered fire engine completely eliminated the need for massive manpower. A machine can pump water continuously, replacing dozens of brawny fireboys. The physical landscape of New York modernized alongside its institutions, paving over the chaotic world of the Bowery gangs with imposing brick and steel. As mechanical progress destroyed the ungovernable era of the volunteer fireboy, Big Mose was forced to transition entirely from a living reality into a ghost of folklore. Big Mose eventually faded from mainstream pop culture. As a violent, cigar-smoking brawler, he couldn't be sanitized for children, leaving safer, rural tales to dominate. Big Mose stands as a deliberate, towering reflection of the tough immigrants who physically built the city's infrastructure and bled to protect its neighborhoods. The myth of Big Mose remains essential because it serves as an unfiltered monument to the raw working-class spirit that built and defended the city long before it was professionalized.